Co-host Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid every Saturday noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM, the Fox River Valley Media Network. We're streaming on WRMN1410.com. Studio call-in numbers here are 847-931-1410. Text here is 505-926-1410. I'm beginning to see a pattern with these 1410s. All right. Or hit us up in the comments on the YouTube live channel, WRMN 1410 channel on YouTube. You can also see our previous shows on the Chief Guard of the Republic YouTube channel. And if you need a link to that, you go to our webpage, cgr.silink.net. And a shout out to Nick Napolitano and his On the Rise radio show, which handles a lot of the local sports. I listened to him on my way in. It's a great show. All right, so Paul, last week I was kind of scatterbrained. I don't think I ever got back to my original point or anything. I have a little bit of that ADHD, where I could be like, start doing a project in my garage, then I move on to something else, and I get most everything done, but I don't do things in a row. I lose, I lose interest, and I move over to something, then I go. Anyways, I think that's one of the things I do on the radio show, and I confuse people. I have to work around that, maybe make myself some notes or an outline. What do you think?
You could, but that's kind of normally, I'm like big into model building, and guys will be doing 2-3 models at the same time. While one's hardening, they're gluing something else or painting it. So actually, I think that's could be an economical use of your time. But whatever. If you think you need notes, we'll do notes. It doesn't matter.
So I wanted to talk more. I wanted to rehash more of AI this week.
All right.
But something.
I wanted to say something. A friend of mine, the guy I talk about a lot, the guy I know that's into threat assessment and a psychologist, he said, look yourself up in the AI mode on YouTube, okay? And or Google, And I looked myself up on the AI mode. And, it was fantastic. It said, how I was a prosecutor. I worked for both the state and the county. And it said that I was noted for doing complex cases. And it mentioned, how I put a guy in prison for 13 years for securities fraud. Mentioned how I was an expert at securities fraud. And then it had picked up some newspaper articles where it mentioned where I had prosecuted like 8 people for raping different people and stuff like that. And then I'm noted for doing complex things. And I looked at it and, I sat there and I sent it to some people, and I said, I should run for office because I came out great. Even if they Googled me or something like that, they might back out of the race, But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. But, like you said, it depends on what they put in it. And mine, I was very happy with mine. In fact, I took screenshots of it. I sent it to everybody. And I said, wow, this is awesome, But it's just the way the ball bounces, Yeah.
So, I ran my name to AI. It came up off my description on the back of my books that's on Amazon. So I basically wrote my own AI.
Well, that's not bad.
So no one out there cares about me enough to write. I knew this guy. He was there is some bad stuff out there, but the guy couldn't get my middle initial or anything right about me. But it was some dude I locked up. One of these guys that just plays the system as much as possible and gets away with it. The last time he was, he was in DuPage County. He was locked up for something in DuPage County, And I called the prosecutor there, and she was so livid about this. She hated this guy. I've never seen so much hate, not even for, murderers and rapists, but this guy was just terrible. Anyway, so one of the things that I'm putting things in is AI is simply garbage in, garbage out. So AI doesn't know you, Paul.
Right.
Never met you, never shook your hand, anything.
No.
So it went out there and ran your name. Did you run your whole name with your middle initial or your entire spelling of your name?
Yeah, I did.
All right. So it went out there and looked for everything there and kind of kablashed it together. All right. And bam, there you go. Like it did with me. There's a couple other Michael Tumans out there, but one's a baseball player, one's a dentist. None of them are world-renowned authors like I am.
Nice.
Yeah. And the garbage in, garbage out thing. So a programmer is in charge of this little slave, basically a mindless slave, an automaton called the computer, right? And you type in the code, and the computer does exactly what your code says. It doesn't do anything extra. It doesn't do anything less. It does exactly to the code. If you put a logical loop in it, it will loop its programming, constantly going through it, until there's a fail safe or until you shut the machine off and restart it. Because a lot of the code, machines will have a fail safe. If it goes through the loop so many times, it'll stop it. So it's simple programming. It's just a logical thing. You say, if A is equal to 1, and you go A is equal to 1, right? And then you go, if A is equal to 1, go to the first line of code, right? Go to line 1. And so it's constantly going to line 1. It's running in a big circle, constantly, because as soon as you execute that, boom, that's what it's doing. All right, so a programmer programs the code. Then it programs the code to go out there and look for something. Then it looks for something and it stacks it, and it takes a preponderance of evidence, whatever the popular belief is out there, because it's getting its information. The programmer isn't saying you will only get your information from this person because I know this person to be truthful and everything else, right? No, it's going out there, it's taking preponderance of evidence, whatever the popular thought is, and boom, it's returning that back. And sometimes it caveats it because the programmers, not AI, the programmers have put in the caveats, popular belief is. But someone sees that in AI and go, oh, it's the truth. They neglect to read the popular belief is, which popular belief is not truth, is it, Paul?
It is not, no.
It is not. It's not fact. It's popular belief. All right? And if you got 51%, then you're popular belief. So it's caveated. All right? That's where the problem is what we discussed with people see that. And it go back, I think it was attributed to AH back in the 20s, actually, with his book MC, all right, or MK in German, right? And he said that if you scream the lie loud enough and long enough, it becomes the truth. And then that was picked up by his boy Goebbels, right? And that's a thing of psyops. That's one thing to use for psyops, that if you scream this loud and long enough, and in AI, it becomes the popular belief because it's being screamed on a big level. You're falsifying the algorithms. If I'm sitting there liking my page, hitting my page 1,000 times, right? Then I'm getting all these hits, right? I'm like, oh, look, I've got 10,000 hits. I've got a great page. And I go to a company, I says, you should advertise on my webpage because I'm getting 10,000 hits. But it's just me doing that. Or I hire a company to do it, which there are companies out there. Or I use AI to do it. I write a code, right? And I use, because one of the things they check on is IP addresses. It's like, is this message coming from the same post office, right? We'd use the post office as like an IP address. Is it all coming from the same post office? Then it's going to say, well, we're only going to qualify these hits if they come from different post offices. But I could write a program that says, hey, reload my VPN, use a random number, and then hit a like on this page using that VPN, which is a virtual private network. So it masks your post office and gives you another post office somewhere else, pretends to be. Right. So if you can do that, if you can manipulate that for the AI, then suddenly AI just becomes completely manipulated because people think this is popular belief. Again, the popular belief is, or the preponderance of belief is, but it's been manipulated. I got my hair stood on end with what little I had a little bit, because sometimes I learned something. It's like sometimes I don't know a lot, and this made real sense to me. My goddaughter, she's never got a degree in code, but she's coding everything. She's into the cyber world there, right? And she hates artificial intelligence. She hates the name artificial intelligence. Absolutely can't stand it. She says it's machine learning. So it's a machine learning something, right? It's not intelligence. It's machine learning. It's machine gathering data. She says there are programs out there, artificial intelligence programs, machine learning programs, just a set of codes where you can send your resume into everyone that has a place to post a resume for a job. You can send it to all of them, like 50, 60,000. And it just sends it all out at once. I mean, it might take a couple seconds with 50 or 60,000 of them, right? But now your resume is in line for every job out there, even if you're not if you're not a killer whale trainer, right? Your resume's in there applying to be a killer whale trainer. And then you could have the AI automatically look through it and say, well, what do they want? And what can I glean from this resume to fluff it up to make it look like I'm a killer whale trainer? And that is slamming these companies with resumes that they got to go through and hopefully get like a real person that'll take the job and not waste time. Because some of these jobs might be minimum wage jobs. Some of them might be, might not have the benefits that this person requires. It might not be anywhere close to them, and they won't be able to move. They only want to work remotely. But they're still putting their resume in for the job. Now you're competing against that. If you're just average Joe, and you're like, type in your resume, monster.com, there it goes, right? And you put in, these are the jobs I kind of want. You're nowhere close to the level of the other people that are just slamming these things. And it's getting to the point where it's going to kill itself. You know what I mean? Where people won't accept these anymore.
Yeah, it's saturated the market with it.
Yeah. So now they're going to say, well, no, we need you coming in person. Apply in person. Because if you put apply in person, you're not going to waste all your time. The person's going to carry in their resume. You might waste their time a little bit, right? But you're narrowing down field down, and now these people that are actually willing to come in and have actual qualifications, where if I'm not questioning you directly, right? I don't know whether you've ever worked with killer whales before. Have you, Paul?
I have not.
Yeah, but now you come in and you go, hey, how long have you worked with killer whales? And you go, I haven't. And I go, well, this is a job for killer whale trainers, And let me not waste your time anymore, sir. We can't train you up for this. We need people that are already trained and experienced, right? So that AI out there, I think, everyone's worried about it, but when it comes to people that can actually turn a screwdriver, right, that can actually do physical data entry, like talking to someone on the phone and doing physical data entry or stuff, or someone that can patch concrete. Let me see. know the nuances of a language, because you could do Google Translate and it could actually voice stuff, right, and speak on it, right? But if you don't know the nuances of a word, right, like between could and may, right? You're English as a second language teacher is going to people that don't get that, right? We get it from birth if we've had a pretty good education and snotty people in our lives, and you go, can I get a cigarette? Go to a friend. Can I get a cigarette? He goes, I don't know. Can you? And you go, well, may I have a cigarette? And he goes, no. I said, well, what was the point of the first line? It's not, So this is going to become a little circle here, because something that drove me nuts, and if I had seen this, because I would have told you, I think we should work on this, because it's more in line with the danger to the republic than anything that I've seen in quite a while. And it completely angered me that some veterans were part of this. Okay? And it's the may and can thing. May, can, could, would, So a couple of legislatures, politicians came out and they said, you don't have to obey. You don't have to obey. They didn't specifically, I think, say illegal order. You don't have to pay.
There's 6 of them, 2 senators and 4 congressmen.
Every order, you can resist. And I'm like, I says, well, that's great, because if a child asks me, can I grab this live high power electrical line? Well, you could, and then they grab it. All right? And they electrocute themselves, because I told them the truth. They could grab it. Yes, it's within reach. Quite possible. Your arms are long enough. You could grab hold on it. You got working fingers. You got muscles. Yes, you could. Now, if they said, may I grab the high power line? And I'm in charge of that person, right? And I says, no, you may not. Could they still grab it? Yes, they could.
They could.
Although I've told them now that they are, it's verboten. It's not allowed. You may not. You absolutely may not, but could and may, right? The trouble is, not everyone, quite a few people don't have the intellectual fortitude to tell the fine differences between that, right? So if you're out there as a senior person in our government, there are 545, right? So they are in the top 570 for line of ascension to the president out of several billion people, right? So like the lowest in seniority congressman is kind of at the bottom of that list. You have all the secretaries for the secretaries there, the vice president, the speaker of the House, and then goes to congressmen and like senators, and these guys are at the bottom of the list, right? So you're a senior person out of roughly 400 million people. You're 600, so you're like 1.5. You're one in a third of 2/3 of a million. 1 in 666,000, right? You're one in that. So your word, you should be educated and stuff. People listen to this word. And they have a thing in the military called a congressional investigation, and people who don't understand it spout it all. I'm going congressional. What that means is that I'm a soldier, and I'm being harassed by my command. I've been shortchanged by the pay system. I'm not getting medical benefits that I deserve. They jumped me in order for the housing, and I've went through all of the all of my options. So I've gone to my commander. He's been non-responsive. I went to his commander. They're non-responsive. I went to the inspector general's office, right? They're non-responsive. And finally, I go and I call my congressman and I detail to him what's going wrong, right? Now, the congressmen have representatives in Congress with their authority, right? And
Right.
it's a colonel, and he comes back and he says, I'm from Congress. And he calls my commander's commander. And he says, what's up with this? He says, no. That's absolutely wrong. I want it fixed right now. And guess what? It gets fixed, or they have 24 hours to explain to the congressman. And if they don't, that colonel's going to be writing letters to their command saying, your guy's kind of like being a congressman. All right? So here's the thing. If you don't know the difference between could and may, right? And your congressman tells you, well, you could, yes, you can violate, you can refuse to follow a illegal order. So you got to be very specific. An illegal order. You can refuse to follow an illegal order. But may you refuse to follow an order, right? See, they didn't say illegal order. It's where you keep that vague, right? Yes.
Right.
You can refuse to follow an order, any order. You may not refuse to follow an order which is not illegal, and pretty much illegal on its face. I'm not talking a sick bird. I'm talking against the Uniform Code of Military Justice, against the U.S. Constitution. In some states, it's legal to smoke pot. If you are stationed in California and you're a U.S. service member and your commander tells you, you may not smoke pot. And you say, well, that's an illegal order in California because it's my right in California. So you light up, you piss test, you get kicked out of the Army. See, they're not legal minds. But you're talking to them with authority and you're leaving stuff out. You're leaving the specifics out. And then when you're confronted with it, then you bring out the specifics of it. But you've already used that to influence, which is dangerous. And I think and they should know, they should be intelligent enough to know when they're being intentionally vague to cause a problem which will create a lack of discipline in our armed forces. So we're going to commercial. We'll be back. I'm getting really excited now. I'm got to calm down and have another cup of coffee. You know, it's been going on now. My daughter's been running this. Yes, I have interest in this. Yeah, it's a conflict of interest with you there. But my daughter's been running this for over a year now. So it's her wrestling promotion. You see her there, Lucia Ludacris. My name is not Ludacris, but Lucia's my daughter's name. So we got the ring and everything. She has top young talent that go out there and wrestle for her. And they got their storylines going. She has a champion. I think they're going to come up with tag team champion belts soon. You know, it's all good. It's all good. If you want to bring your kids out to a nice, inexpensive show, because it's like $1,500 to go to WWE or something like that. And speaking of that, Lucia was just on the she was just out there in Franklin Park for the Chicago Style Wrestling, CSW, and she won the Royal Rumble. She was the last one standing in the ring and won the Royal Rumble. So she's got some street creds out there like you wouldn't believe. So that's a shout out for them. Another shout out for all my veteran friends at Dunkin' Donuts Veterans over on 7039 on Dempster. The Dunkin' Donuts out there every Tuesday starts at 9 o'clock, usually goes maybe 10:30 at the latest. If we have a speaker, 7039 on Dempster. And guys usually get in there around 8 o'clock and start, having their coffee and chat. And it's a great place for old veterans to meet up and, And every week, this is every week out there. So, Paul, I was babbling around doing most of the talking. So, tell me, have you ever prosecuted someone for disobeying a police order?
Yeah. It was kind of a weird situation, though. It was a guy that was doing something strange in a neighborhood. In other words, he was trying to rouse some streetwalkers, and what happened was he was pretending to be a police officer.
Ooh, nice.
And but he paid a lot of money. He got a vehicle that looked like a police escape. What is it?
They were using the Tahoes.
Yeah, well, this was before that, but he got it.
Crown Vic.
It in
Crown Vic or the Chevy Caprice.
The big one, not Escape, the Explorer.
Explorer.
And he got, but he didn't get it in a color, like he got it like in a fire department color. Anyway, so what happened was they pulled up to him, and he had like this accoutrements of being a police officer, and they asked him if he was the police, and he acknowledged that he was when he wasn't. So they asked him for some more information. So it was like kind of disobeying an order for something like that. So anyway, he got convicted, and so
the police pulled him over and asked him if he was the police.
No, he was stationary, and they couldn't figure out why he was there. You know, are you the police? What's going on? And he goes, yeah. And then they go, well, where are you from? And then it came down from there. So anyway, that turns out that that's actually false presentation and impersonating the police and disobeying orders and stuff like that. So it was kind of like that. And this was right after 9/11. So it was kind of an important thing. And so, yeah, he got convicted, but it was kind of weird. And then I've gone after people that didn't disperse when they should.
That's a key one, because they've run that through the up to the Supreme Court, I think.
Yeah.
And now they have to give them like triple warnings.
Yeah.
And they got to get a number, and they got to write it down, and they got to say this person at this time was told to disperse on this street corner. Then they got to come back and tell them again, and then they come back the third time, and if they ain't gone, they can take them into custody for disobeying a failure to disperse and disobeying a police order. But here's a key thing: a civilian who has never sworn an oath, right, of service, can get locked up for disobeying an order from a police officer, right? And the reason for that is for the safety of the public. Sure, okay. Could someone call me up and give me the 1 in a billion chances where that wasn't right, right? Well, this happened and that wasn't right, therefore we shouldn't enforce it on anyone else, even though it'll cause panic, destruction, riots in the city. We shouldn't enforce that anymore. You know, it's a traffic thing.
Then there was the famous incident during the White Sox World Series when we were brought together by Major League Baseball because of their fear of their brand being diluted. So we had a special task force, and this is kind of interesting. It was the Cook County Sheriff, the state's attorneys, the U.S. Marshals, and customs people, and then our investigators. And we went there when they were doing the nights that they were doing the World Series here, and this I'm talking like '05, and there was a concerted effort. You know, when they talk about stuff, there were people that would come from quote out of town, and also there was lawyers for Major League Baseball involved in this. There were lawyers because there were people selling counterfeit merchandise, and they were really worried about their brand. And there had been
the licensing, the money, because I could print the T-shirt for $1.25, and if I sell it for the same price they sell it for, I'm making $50 a T-shirt.
Right.
And I'm not giving them their cut.
So what happened was we didn't know what the valid trademark stuff was. So anyway, I got teamed up with some sheriffs and some U.S. Marshals.
I believe they're deputies.
Yeah. Well, they were pretty high up in the sheriff's office.
They're still deputies. There's one sheriff.
Yeah, but they were like the commanders because that's how it worked out. And then we got split up. Okay. And you had to understand there were like thousands of people, like thousands. And it ended up being me and a lawyer from Major League Baseball. And we were under a viaduct, okay? And he had identified a guy that he saw in I think the All-Star game that year was in Detroit. And this guy was familiar to him. And he said, that guy, it turned out the guy had 100 shirts on. He literally was wearing 100 T-shirts. And he was selling them.
I don't want the bottom T-shirt. I don't want the bottom T-shirt.
Yeah, right. But anyway, they were surprised because I said to him, come over here. And then he wouldn't come over here. And then I told him, I said, well, you're under arrest. And then the crowd came at me, you know, like I'm talking about several hundred people.
Oh, I've been there.
You know? And what they didn't know was behind the crowd were the U.S. Marshals. So they turned on the siren, and then, you know, we got the guy and about 20 other guys. But the guy said, I told you, you were under arrest. You know, I said, I told you that. So anyway, but it was kind of strange, and you know, they were. It was bad. It was a bad situation, but yeah, you know, there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen when you disobey orders. One
of the things to do an analogy, a real layman's analogy, is when you have traffic. Let's say the traffic lights go out, right? And one's flashing green, one's flashing red, one's flashing yellow. They're all messed up because AI went insane. Right? It gained sentient and said, well, I'm just going to have Christmas lights, right? So you got patrolmen out there, you know, and they're directing traffic. And they're stopped one way and they let the other way go. And then some guy decides, hey, my thing says green, so I'm going to go even though there's a patrolman there telling me to stop. Right? Telling him to stop. He thinks the light supersedes the patrolman. So, of course, that's disobeying a patrolman. It's a traffic violation, but it could also be disobeying law enforcement. So he gets a ticket and he has to show up to court. Oh, no, right? And the reason being is he's the jerk that's going to cause a mass amount of
injury.
Not just injury, but gridlock, you know. If no one listens to these guys, it just goes gridlock because people will sit there at a flashing yellow light waiting for that sucker to turn red. They will block. There will be two people absolutely blocking traffic because it's flashing yellow and they don't know what to do. So coming back to the military here with talking about the senators and everything, you have a lot of guys out there that are honestly, guys and girls, wonderful people. They're wonderful people. They join to protect the country. Maybe they have reasons, but 75% of them knew that they were joining for semi-patriotic reasons. Right? But you have to instill good order and discipline in them. They have to have a mentality where they will obey orders almost without thought, almost. But it's generally the same orders all the time. So that's why we do drill and ceremonies. While you see these guys marching, they go left flank, right flank, counter column, which is difficult, for everyone. But at the end of 8 weeks of this drill and ceremonies, you're not only anticipating the drill sergeant, right? You're doing everything. Everyone's in step. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Everyone's in step and everything. Now, if you're new to marching, and you're marching guys that have been drilled, all right, that have been in drilling ceremonies, and we've been doing it, and all of a sudden we get a practice, a guy that's practicing, new guy practicing marching us. He's not very confident with it, and he's going to march us into traffic because he hasn't said left flank, he hasn't said right flank left, he hasn't halted us, we haven't gone to mark time. These are marching things where he should, if he loses his thing, he should just halt, just halt, But instead of walking into traffic, the front row is going to immediately stop and at least mark time, which is marching in place. And everyone's going to march in place behind them. Because the front four guys should not be so oblivious, right, as to realize that they're walking into traffic, because there's no military purpose in a training environment for walking into traffic. And there's no military purpose to say that I walked into traffic because that guy that was just practicing his orders, right? Just practicing his orders, told me to. So he outranks me or whatever, and if I didn't do that, I would be in violation. You see, there's where you're thinking, right? You're not going to march into the traffic. Those are orders. It's an order, all right? But do you have to obey it? No, I don't have to put... In combat, listen, you're going to have to cross that busy road to get, to go get that bunker over there. Try not to get hit by a car while you're running across. Well, it's a combat order. I go over. I'm at risk. You're going to be at risk. But that's not an illegal order. All right? You're in combat. You have someone over you. If someone's making stupid illegal orders, like, I want you to jump off that cliff, well, that's not a good order. That's an illegal order. And if you have the basic amount of training in your head, self-preservation, you're going to question that. All right. But where it came out and discussing this, and I think we've been quite clear on it, and I don't know why the Supreme Court hasn't just come down and stomped on these, quote, these judges, right? Can the President of the United States send the National Guard to protect U.S. government property and U.S. government employees at any time? Yes, he may. It's right there. It's right there. He may do it. But the press wants you to believe their narrative, and the narrative of the opposing side is that they're using the National Guard against the Constitution for law enforcement purposes. They're arresting people. No, they're not. They're protecting the people that are arresting people. And then they are protecting the people that have been arrested, either from escape or from making further injuries and everything. They're not arresting anyone. No National Guard soldier is signing an arrest report. Right? He's there protecting the federal officers who are not National Guard, or not National Guard at that time, because many of them have joined the National Guard. So when you tell people that the National Guard is violating the law, right, that any order that National Guard gives you, like a police officer, right, but not for law enforcement purposes, National Guard says, back off, let this man do the job. And you don't. And the man says, I'm being locked, he locks the guy up for obstruction. And the National Guard takes custody of him for protective custody, until he can get to court, because there's not enough of these guys to do all that. That's perfectly fine, perfectly legal. But now you got people wordsmithing that are putting idea not only in the heads of the civilians, but in the heads of the National Guard members. Hey, is what I'm doing right and legal? And you can't have an army, you can't have a force like that that doesn't know what they're doing is right and legal. So to have your congressman telling you that, why would he tell me that unless he thought it was illegal? Right? Why would he say that? There's a swimming pool. Let's say there's a swimming pool that just opened up, right? And it's got a lifeguard and everything, right? And everyone's a qualified swimmer. They had to do whatever. And they come there, and the mayor of the city or someone comes out and says, be real careful entering that water. And you're like, well, is there something wrong with it? Is it dangerous? Why would he say that? There's a lifeguard on duty. I passed my swim qualifications. The swimming pool's passed everything. This guy's coming out and telling me to be careful. What's wrong with it? What is he hiding? That's what gets into people's minds. That's wordsmithing. That's psyoping people. And I think it's not right. What do you think, Paul?
Well, the main guy, the astronaut that's also in the military, he was on the short list for vice president at one time, or president, and so he's got an agenda, all right, and their agenda is to spread dissension. I mean, it's and he wants to, they want to spread dissension in all of this. And
where are they spreading the dissension?
Huh?
Where are they spreading the dissension?
Well, because they don't want a positive outcome.
Where? By this type of speech, where are they spreading the dissension?
Within the military.
Sedition.
Right. Which is what was said. But now now everybody's backing off of that.
Well, because that's they wordsmithed it, knowing that it would be understood one way, but they could talk their way out of it the other way. They wanted all these Guard members to think that they could just, because they had the Guard and Reserve and active duty, because it didn't feel right to them, right? That they didn't have to obey it because it doesn't feel right. That's what they said. That's what they wanted them to think. In reality, they go, well, what we meant was they didn't have to obey an illegal order. Well, everyone knows that. You're taught that in the military. You're taught that. You don't get out of basic training without knowing that stuff. You definitely don't get out of an NCO school or an officer school without knowing that. But suddenly, some guy that was going to be an astronaut is telling you that, so you're like, well, what's wrong with this? Is this wrong? Is this an illegal order? Am I, because you're not a lawyer or whatever. And
well, the way I heard it is that they're taking people that weren't in the military for a real long time or might be new at it, and they're trying to capitalize on that, and they're trying to make them question their authority. But what they don't understand is when they question that, they make the whole military weak, and they spread a problem for the whole nation. So it's contra to the freedom of the country and detrimental to our safety and security by doing that.
Absolutely.
And it's done just for a political reason.
Yeah, that's creepy. That's absolutely, it angers me to the point of violence, but not actually.
And you're not saying the thing that was on the end of it. they said that they had their back. How would these 6 people have your back when they're going to just step all over you and say, well, we told you, and they're going to, you're going to be the sacrificial lamb?
They have zero their back. They have,
Right.
unless they're Secretary of the Army.
Right.
All right, when we come back, after our fine sponsors, more Chief Guard of the Republic with Mike getting angry. Want to read some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring their international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa Sierra Yankee Lima India November Kilo dot November Echo Tango. Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube Live channel.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410 Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
But I think she's a nice person.
Republican strategist Terry McGuire advises patience for anybody concerned about.
It's got to this point. Now, it doesn't help us with rhetoric on both sides. It doesn't help us that people are encouraged to beat on police cars that are being transporting these people. We have become animals, in other words.
On both sides, correct.
Mm-hmm. Both the arresters and the demonstrators. Okay, this is not the country that we were in, and unfortunately, it might have fallen on the present administration, but this has been a long time coming.
Okay,
and what we need to do is figure out how we stop this. And we get back to the America that we were, one that's based on laws and the Constitution and loving your neighbor and things like that. But we're not there. And, I don't know how we're going to get there. When you have politicians that demonize everybody and make it sound, I have a relative that was killed by an illegal recently, and they were run down on the street. And I agree with all of you. There's wonderful people out there, but there's also people out there that are killers.
And none of us disagree with that either.
Okay, so here's something, right? Going back to First Blood, Rambo, and this wasn't in the book. The book's excellent. Oh my God, the book is so awesome, right? First Blood. But Stallone made a good movie, and one of the lines that I remember, and it's just a Hollywood movie, but Troutman's there, and he says, listen, lay off this guy, back off, go back into town. let things cool down. He's going to walk in somewhere, all right? He's going to be working at a car wash, and you're going to pick him up. It'll be no problem, right? Same thing. The reason Chicago initially, and they put it in front of Mayor, the junior Mayor Daley, Richie Daley, right? And they put it in front of him. How come you're issuing this order that we won't cooperate with ICE? Like we used to, they go to county. Well, county was cooperating. We won it. They would go to county if they were locked up on a felony, only a felony. They didn't care about the misdemeanors. If they're locked up on the felony, then if they had a deportation warrant, ICE would launch them almost immediately. They would take them and get them out. But here's the thing. The patrolmen, we're constantly going out there. We're running people in cars because they're driving poorly, all right? Or they're having domestics, and we're going in there, and we run their names. We get their names, and all of a sudden this pops up, the warrant. So now we have them in control. We have a controlled environment. We could very quietly take them out, have them in our nice controlled police station. They've already committed a crime or suspected of committing a crime, but we have them on the warrant. And we had probable cause to run their name, all right? Reasonable suspicion, probable cause. And now we have them, and now they quietly get deported or they go to their hearing, and then the feds hold them to whatever. And they're taken off the streets quietly, all right? But the thing was, we don't want them to be afraid to come to talk to the police if they're witnesses or victims that they might get deported. I'm like, oh yeah, they're really talking as witnesses. They're really talking as witnesses.
Okay, but let me just, if I can, I don't want to interrupt you. You're talking like a street cop, and I get it. Okay, you worked it, I worked it. We understand what it's like. I believe me, a full understanding. So just so we could go down our list and agree with all of what was said, the military was brought in here to protect the federal agents in the commission of their activities and to protect federal facilities. Can all four of us agree on that?
I can agree.
That's what they were brought in to do.
I understand that. Paul, do you agree with that piece?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Paul now says that each one of the people that are, like the one woman that went into the daycare center, and again, there was 2 pictures painted. When you see the whole video, it was a traffic stop that she eluded the police or kept them going in this little mini chase. She elected to go to the facility where the children were, go into the building, and then because that's where they were able to stop her because there was doors in the way, they took her into custody and brought her out. So to your point, Paul, you're telling me for them to seek her out, they already knew and had a warrant for her with her name on it, whether they show it to anybody or not, whether you legally are able to, because I get the defense attorney will get it in discovery. So is that a circumstance of that there was a warrant for that woman and they were just...
I don't know.
Okay.
It could be closer to what he's talking about.
Here's something else. I got probable cause or reasonable suspicion. I don't need a warrant. All right?
I got that.
If I saw the crime happening, I do not need a warrant. All right.
You've seen this downtown. There was a guy on a bike. He said, "Hey, I'm illegal," and then they ran after her. Okay. If they're presented with that, they can logically follow it. They can chase them. Now, the question is whether they could chase them into a building or they can chase them into any public space.
It's fresh pursuit, even into a private property. Mm-hmm. If it is a true and they have enough probable cause, fresh pursuit will allow you to go into someone's residence.
It depends, because what Sonar's talking about are what they call civil warrants.
Right.
Okay. He's talking about civil warrants. Okay. He's talking about civil things. We're talking about a different thing here. We're talking about people that, and I agree with you, we should not be a nation where we're just, hey, but you got to remember something now. What would be technically profiling has been recently determined by the courts in this circumstance not to be profiling.
Yep.
So,
The totality of
and again,
circumstances changed.
Hey, quit using my
because of it.
words.
Well, that's what was in the Supreme Court docket as well.
Let me ask you all a question here.
Go ahead.
Should undocumented, quote, or illegal aliens or undocumented aliens or migrants be a protected class of citizens? Not citizens. They're not citizens. All right, wait. Let me correct that. Should illegal aliens, undocumented, or undocumented migrants be a protected class? I'm not saying citizens because they're not citizens.
But they're protected by
A class.
but they're protected by the Constitution and
That's-
all people.
Okay, that's not a class. That's everybody. All right?
Okay, but they're
So
in
I
that
don't think it
class.
should
though.
be specific.
So if I commit a crime,
Yes.
Yeah.
fleeing and eluding the police,
Right.
all right, is it any different from them committing?
No, we're not saying they're not protected in that vein.
But am I
but here's
protected
the
by
other
the
side
press?
to it. Well, here's the other side to it is those weren't police. Those were ICE agents that were after a general civil warrant at the time, not a police officer that was going, well, you're speeding, so I'm going to pull you over. It was a profiling, hey, I'm going to pull you over because you may have a Mexican flag on your car, or you have darker skin than the other person.
Or you're driving 10 miles under the limit.
Well, that's what I mean. Is they are ICE agents?
Yeah.
They are not beat cops.
No,
that
and they're not-
are
and they're
going,
not
"Well,
supposed to be
well,
acting that way."
You ran that stop sign, so now us as ICE agents, we're going to pull you over, and then if you happen to be
Okay,
illegal,
Sonar,
we're going to do
I
something.
have to agree with you on that. All right.
But if they have it on view, Michael, they're not allowed to.
Well,
They're not
okay,
police.
so we've had cases. No, I'm saying
hold on a second,
by doing a traffic.
Hold on a second. You got to be careful here, because what did we have happen on September 11, 2001? We had an attack.
Mm-hmm.
So we changed our laws. These are people are all Homeland Security. You're talking about their main function, but they're all Homeland Security. Now, if you're saying that a Homeland Security agent can't do a traffic stop, then you're wrong.
I agree with you on that.
Okay.
Because of the
FBI
auspice of Homeland Security.
Right. The FBI does traffic stops all the time,
Sure they do.
and DEA does them, and ATF does them, and
That's covered under Department of Transportation regulations.
Right, they can do traffic stops, and see, I actually heard something this week, and I don't want to get too much into it, where a state agency was involved in something, and they had their local police, they had their police talking about it, and they actually said that they were asked if the facility was safe for people that were illegal, and they said, we're going to tell you no. We can't defend you, because once we get involved in it, we're committing obstruction of justice. And again, I'm going to say that public areas are fair game. Okay. Now, whether it's public or private is an issue, and that might end up in the courts, and that might be a concern, but public spaces are fair game for these ICE agents.
Okay, so
And the street is public.
yeah, so here's the thing, right? They were following her because they said she committed a traffic violation.
Okay.
She wanted to pull over. Now they have this brand new thing that I didn't get in my squad car, and it was an unmarked detective car from auto theft.
Okay, go ahead.
We got a computer in there, all right? But that was connected in, all right? So these guys, there's plates, and guess what? They let them register cars with their names and birth dates, and sometimes they have, guess what? Pritzker allowed them to be issued driver's licenses. The last governor before Governor Pritzker that allowed people to be issued, illegal aliens be issued driver's licenses, went to prison for that exact thing, George Ryan.
Excuse me.
Of course, he was bribed to allow to do it, and no one's saying that Pritzker was bribed. There's different methods of bribing, though, right? So her information, and they're not going to tell you means. The one thing about intelligence is you don't want to give up your sources. You don't want to give up your means of collecting the information.
Yep.
Sources and methods. You don't want to give sources and methods up. But it's quite possible they had a computer in the car or radio communications to their base and said, listen, we're following this car. This is the plate number. And they go, oh, that car belongs to a female Hispanic of such and such. Or like, here's another way, because this is what I used to do as a detective, right? Is, okay, they give me it's registered to this address. And I go, okay, run that address for possible warrants, people at that address. And boom, this pops up, right? So could they have went to her house and picked her up? But this is what you call opportunity.
Yeah, you're driving around doing a patrol. You picked
And
up a suspicious
It's an
person.
view.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
you know what I
and I'll let you know, because it's common knowledge, the street cleaners and the tow trucks in the city and the city buses have cameras.
Wow.
And they take a picture of the plate. And if you're parked in the bus stop, that gets sent to Department of Streets and Sands, all right? So it's possible, and some of the police cars had them, they're just driving down the street, running real slow and running these plates to find the stolen car.
I just can't imagine.
It pops up, and it automatically hits, and they're like, what do we do?
I just can't imagine an ICE agent being able to write a traffic ticket. That's just
Well, you know,
Well, you don't have to.
But here's how it
over
happens.
or whatever else.
You do not have to.
You call local jurisdiction.
called
Sure,
local
to
right.
write
They
the
issue it.
ticket.
To your point
absolutely,
before,
sure.
Dennis,
I absolutely agree with you.
I had a case where I had the defense attorney, and it was a juvenile court, and the defense attorney was going nuts. And he says it was for possession of stolen motor vehicle. And he says, nowhere on the arrest report did you put down that you saw this person driving the vehicle. I says, absolutely not. I did. I absolutely put it there. And they're like, no, you didn't. And we're getting into it, and the judge finally stops and says, nowhere verbatim did you write that you saw him driving the vehicle. I says, that is correct, Your Honor. She goes, explain it. And I go, 101, 6-101, I believe, right? Driving without a license. I could not write that ticket without me having seen him driving that vehicle without a license. I have signed the ticket. That is my affidavit to me seeing him drive without a license. So it's inferred. Why should I put redundant information on that report? She laughed and sent the guy. He actually got found guilty. He had already been pled guilty to adult burglary before his
But
juvenile court
out of
went.
fairness, we're not talking about simple petty offenses. We're not talking about traffic issues. We're talking about what scope do these officers have? So everyone's calling them ICE agents, ICE agents, ICE agents. And I have to, thanks, Paul, for clarification. You're calling them Homeland Security, which they are. So as
Coast Guard, too.
Well, okay. But I mean, Homeland Security is a part of regular law enforcement
there is-
and has the same police powers.
There are federal codes for employment, right?
Understood.
And 1180 covers like FBI, it covers DEA, it covers Treasury, and it covers the police at the VA.
I understand
right?
that.
So 1180 law enforcement, ICE agents.
I get it.
Depends.
I'm just trying to summarize because we only got 5 minutes left.
What's it?
The other thing
Might
is
be something.
Sonar is right about a lot of what he's saying, but when you're in the mix, like most of my cases came from federal agents that were prosecuted locally. I prosecuted them in state court. I had the FBI bring me cases, and then we're the investigators. I had the Secret Service. I had a famous case where some guy was stealing tax money on gasoline. The Secret Service was my arresting agency. They were my investigating. They can do state crimes. They have to go to their supervisor, and the U.S. attorney has to say you can do it. But I did cases for HUD that was mortgage fraud, prosecuted statewide. I did cases with the Secret Service, with the FBI, with the DEA. I did cases with the Department of Labor. Pensions were stolen from companies. I didn't have Chicago police. Mike wasn't there. The Secretary of State wasn't there. It was U.S. Department of Labor special agents. So, we keep saying there's a difference between state and federal. They're cops. They're cops. They're cops that might not work the street, but they're cops.
Absolutely. And I think that's
the line here because, and again, I blame the politicians. My father was a cop. Mike's father was a cop. When you're a cop, you don't let another cop be twisted in the wind so he can be killed for a political or get hurt. We had guys shot in the head here in Chicago because the feds backed off or something like that. We support our police.
But
now,
they have been. Out of fairness, Paul, out of fairness, they have been. Broadview, you had said that you were pretty upset with the mayor. She has sent her police to take. Here's where the problem is. You could be mad at the politicians, which I am furious at our politicians. You want to be mad at somebody? Be mad at the news media. Be mad at the podcasters. Be mad at not us. We're speaking
Absolutely.
the truth. We're pouring facts out here. We got a friggin' prosecutor here. You got 2 members of law enforcement, former. Okay, and then you got Mr. Politics over here. So if we aren't going to get the facts out there, I don't think many other people are going to. We want truth in facts, like News Nation.
Yeah.
This is what we pride ourselves after.
Sonar is our reasonable man.
What? Okay.
When you talk about reasonable people,
Constitution,
everything
man.
is based.
Everything is based on a reasonable man test.
It's sometimes it's a matter of convincing the reasonable man.
Yeah.
And I have to agree. Yes,
we should be open to all points.
Right.
We should be open. We should be open to all points.
But the problem
That's
is
what
that,
we're all about.
and the last word I'll say, and I'll let you guys close. The problem, back to what I'm saying, it's the media that is allowing the wrong narratives to be out there. Had somebody, though, again, back to the administration or back to the head guy in charge, says, okay, this is what we are. This is really what we're allowed to do. We are a part of Homeland Security. You better comply or you're going to have
There's
problems.
no education
There's
to it.
none whatsoever. And had that been done,
and we try to be educational.
well, yeah,
Educational.
that's what we're doing here. Yeah, before I couldn't even spell it.
All right. So next week we'll be back for Chief Gunner Republic. This was a
conversation,
great
Paul.
show.
Michael,
Great
great.
participation. Thank
Yeah.
you, Dino.
I hope you don't
Thank
mind
you,
us.
Paul.
Thank you. Thanks,
Happy
Paul.
Thanksgiving.
Hey, have a great Thanksgiving, brother.
Take care, you guys.
All
Happy
right.
Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.